Hi, welcome back. My name is Audrey Shantz and I am a watercolor artist. I'm a watercolor teacher and I actually only started painting 4.5 years ago, and since then I've opened a shop and I started teaching watercolor. I got fully invested. So I'm a huge believer that the more you paint, the better you'll get, and it's really fun to teach. So today we've got this cute watermelon, which I think will be so fun to paint. You see a very beautiful color bleed from top to bottom, which is very satisfying and just kind of perfect for summer. So get yourself something to drink, maybe light a candle, and let's get started. All right, let's talk supplies for a minute. I actually just have a little mechanical pencil from like my kids' like school supplies, so just a regular pencil will do. I've got a kneaded eraser. I love them because they don't leave shavings on your paper when you erase, which we will always do. And then this is a Winsor & Newton size 10 round watercolor brush. I like it because it has the tip of the brush, which is great for small spaces and little details, and the belly of the brush, which holds a lot of water, which is great for big spaces, which makes it good for like multi-purpose. I basically use one brush when I paint. And then this is a 3" by 3" piece of 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. I just get the Canson brand, which is like very, very common. This is my watercolor paint set. You can get any set that works for you. Just make sure it's not frustrating to use. If so, there's a better set. This is the one that I've got, and I can link that below as well. So let's see. I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way. Move our paints because we don't need them yet. And we're gonna get started with our pencil and our eraser. So let me make sure you guys can see here. So it's a triangle, kinda, right? But it's a wedge really, because it has a curve at the bottom and it's pretty much centered on our paper. So I like to maybe start with a couple dots. Let's put a dot somewhere near the top center, leaving space above it. And the same thing where we want it to end. This is just us preserving our space, making sure we don't go too far to the edges, right? And this is the center basically, right? So let's actually turn this into a big wide curve. I'm gonna get a little bit closer because I know pencil can be hard to see. There we go. And from here, I like to turn, even for something like this, I like to turn my paper. We're gonna go from here to here. The way to get a nice straight line is, see how I'm holding my pencil above like this instead of pinching at the point, right? I'm on top of it, okay? Then I'm gonna go from one point to the next, and I wanna kind of look at this point to help me get there. Now, I did it on the first try. That doesn't mean that you should. Like, it takes me a couple tries, no big deal. Drawing is really about pencil and eraser. And we're gonna get the next one too, and we'll turn it back upright. Then I wanna take right here and do this little small horizontal line coming off to the right. And I'll maybe make a dot over here where I think it might end. And then you can turn your paper again if you'd like. I'll keep it straight so it's less annoying on camera for you. I just straighten that out and I'll connect this. We're done with our sketch, basically. We can add some seeds in. Let's add some seeds in. You could do those later or now. And like, this is imperfect. That doesn't bother me at all. It's a slice of watermelon. We don't need perfection. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seeds on this one. You can do that, or you can do more or less. It doesn't matter. You don't have to draw these now. But just like anything else, if you draw them now, you have the chance to erase them if you don't like where they're at. If you do it with paint later, you're stuck. So that's up to you. And I did 6 of them here. Maybe I'll add 1 more here. And I think that looks good to me. We don't need any lines for anything else, but I will show you that on this reference, I did put a little bit of a line in to give me a guide where I wanted my green to maybe not go further than, but I can't erase it, so you can still see it. So if that doesn't bother you, you can do a really light little line somewhere around here. Otherwise, you're just gonna wanna keep that in mind, okay? Because we're gonna start with water this time. Your sketch is done. Now, if you wanted to sketch these, you could. These are the polka dots in the back, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna do them at the end. And it's time to mix our paints. I'm going to grab my paintbrush and let's look at what we need. We're going to need a dark green, a light green, some sort of pink, which is just red plus water, red, and then I want to get even darker with that red. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors. I'm gonna dip my brush into my water first. And let's start with pink. If you have a pink, like my set has a pink, which I would typically use, but I can just take a little bit of red and add water to it. And that's gonna get me my pink as well. So I'm gonna save that because you don't all have that. And I know it. That's part of why I like this set, is because it has a good pink. But it's red plus water, so make sure you get enough water. If you already have way too much red on your brush, clean out your brush and get the pigment out of your brush and come back, and that should help. Oh, look, I got some on our painting. Whoops. Okay, so we got our pink. Let's get into our red then. I'll do the same color. And see, I have all of these reds to choose from, so you just pick which one you like. This looks, I think I want it to be darker, so I'll grab another one. But just work with what you've got. It doesn't matter. This is a nice solid red that I'm going to use for the main portion here. So we'll do those two. Actually, let's not make a puddle of the darkest red. We'll take that right from your paints later. Let's get some lime green or some light green, whichever one you have. I've got lime green. If you don't, just grab a green and add some water until it's just light. That's what matters on this part. Then I want to get a dark green, and on my set, that's going to be over here. But when I do the dark green, I want very little water. So if you already had a whole paintbrush full of water and you came at this, take your brush, clean it out, kind of dry it just a little bit, maybe wipe it on your towel once, you know, and then come over here with the tip of your brush. We're going to grab it like this. Your dark green needs to be small. It's a little baby. But see how I can easily move it around? It needs to have enough water to move freely, but if it has too much water, it will never stay at the bottom. It will just shoot right across because the water is the carrier, right? Okay, I'm gonna zoom in a little. Oops, we need this one. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. So make sure your puddles are ready. That's always setting you up for success because watercolor is about timing. This lets you play. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually dip my brush into my water. And I'm going to fill in the whole thing. So ignore the part on the right. Ignore the seeds, everything. Just go over everything. I'm going to fill it in with water. Now, I did kind of a lot of water, which means I'm going to look at it now. I'm going to show it to you too. You can see the light reflecting on it, which is great. But I want to see the texture of my paper through it just a little. So I'm touching my brush to my towel and just lifting up a little, but I still need to see this is glossy. Then I'm going to start loading my colors in. I'm going to start with some of the pink. No, I'm not. I'm going to start with the red. We're going to get the red in and we're going to start at the top. Look how far that went. That means I need to control my water a little bit because wow, that went far, huh? If that happened to you too, no big deal. We're going to keep moving. So I'm going to take this one here, and I realize we put water down. So everything we add to this, less water. But what happens, you see it's moving the red. Isn't that crazy? I'm reloading my green because I didn't have quite enough. I'm going to swipe green all the way across the bottom. And it keeps moving my red, which is so fun. I'm going to make sure I have enough pink. I want to add pink down here, closer to my green. So you're playing right now. I may not be able to explain this perfectly, but you're putting water down first. And what you want to see is dark to light. We're getting lighter as we go. So I cleaned my brush and dried it. Now I'm going to move around this. I'm going to touch it. I'm pulling the red down a little, all the way down to here. Now realize while it's wet, you can play. So like awesome. And below it is still wet too. I'm going to get into my green, my dark green. Oops, I had something on my brush. Just a little. Remember, we're really keeping track of our water on this one. Very little. While it's still wet, I will run just the tip of my brush along the base. I want that to stay put, you know. Perfect. If it got out of control, you can clean your brush and dry it and use your brush to lift it if you needed to. Everything's still shiny, so it's still wet and I can play. So now I'm getting into, I'm going to show you here, my red. I want very little water. I want lots of dark red because I want the top to be even darker. And because it's all shiny, I got outside the line, so I just made it a little bigger. Okay, that's a tip for you. Because it's all shiny, I know that my colors are going to blend, so I'm free to do this. I'm adding dark red. I'm bringing it all the way down here. I'm wishing it had pulled it a little further, but it didn't. So I cleaned my brush and dried it. I'm just touching a wet brush to this to see what I can get to have happen. I'm gonna pretty much leave it, and look at this one. It is very similar at this point. This didn't get all the way to the side, so I'm touching a wet brush to it. Great. This is the kind of thing you might practice a couple times, but it's so fun because you're trying to control wet on wet, which is like essentially no control. So it's a challenge. Okay, I'm going to use my heat gun right now and dry this up gently and carefully. If you got to this point though, and there's a bunch of puddling and pooling, you're gonna wanna take your brush and dry it. For example, like right here, I can lift some of this up before I got to my dryer. That way the dryer isn't gonna just like shoot your paint all over. But man, look at these cool lines already. I'm gonna zoom in on it. Can you see that? And then I'll dry it and I'll show it to you, because as it dries, it moves and changes. I've just dried it, so I'm showing it to you up close so you can see the differences now. Similar but different. It's always fun to watch that. Okay, we ignored this spot on the right, but now we're coming back to it. So we want a dark red. I'm just gonna use a puddle I already had. And I'm gonna turn my paper so it's easier, and I think you should probably do it too. It's great for these straight lines. And I'm gonna take that dark red and run it. I'm looking for my pencil line. It's harder to see now, but that's okay. I'm running it right along this side. When I get to about here, I'm going to clean my brush and dry it a little, and then take my wet brush and just kind of fill it in this way so it was lighter. So I just did that with the teeniest bit of water on my brush. And since it's wet, I can even lift that up if I want. If that's not dark enough and you wanted to see more darkness while it's wet, you can get into more darkness and even darken it up over here. And it's so cool because now it gives you that dimension. And I'm going to do the same thing. I cleaned my brush and dried it, and with that wet brush, I'm just going to touch this part so you still get that beautiful little fade of color. This is all dry. The only part wet is this strip, which means I can make a little teeny tiny puddle of black. And when I say teeny, I mean it. So tip of your brush into your water, then tip of your brush into your black paint until you get this little teeny tiny puddle. If I have more than that, I probably won't have the control that I want. You're probably finding right now, if you don't have a brush with a good tip on it, this might annoy you. It's okay though, because your seeds will be cute even if they're a little fatter. I'm gonna hold my brush vertically. I can put my pinky down on somewhere that's dry if I want for support. And these can be straight lines, they can be pressing your brush down, they can be polka dots. It does not matter. It's going to be unique to each of us, just sort of like how our handwriting is different. See, I did them as straight lines here, but polka dots up top, both great. Now this is drying while we work, so we're fine. We won't take the dryer to that one because it's small enough. And the polka dots. We're gonna get into the polka dots. So now I already have this puddle of red. I'm just gonna look at it. I want mine a little darker, so I added a little bit more red paint into it. I still wanna make sure that I'm using the tip of my brush. So if your brush is full of water right now, you're gonna wanna clean it and dry it out. Just wipe it on your towel. Then the tip of my brush was into my paints or my water, just the tip. And that sort of makes it act like it's a small brush. Uh-oh, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, when I do polka dots like this, I like to think of them as diagonal lines. I'll turn my paper a little. You don't have to follow the diagonal of this watermelon. I like to kind of go like this. And I'm just gonna do dots. You're touching it to your paper, leaving a space, touching it, leaving a space, touching it, leaving a space. And you would decide if you want one here or not. And then I'm gonna go like halfway between each of them and looking for that same distance. So just like this. Now refresh your paintbrush as needed so that your dots look somewhat similar. And remember, a paintbrush is about pressure. So if you put a lot more pressure on one, that dot's gonna be bigger. And no big deal, mine are imperfect. And you're still here. So now I'm still looking for wherever I can get that diagonal line in, I'll do it, because that will kind of get me right on track again. And these are imperfect dots. I don't care. Nobody said it had to be perfect, right? And then I'll go over here and try to find a way to go diagonal again. Trying to like find, you know, ground again, I guess. And then I'll go in between them, and that gives me my guide over here. And this is it. We are just adding a few more dots. You can sign your work if you'd like to. I hope you're starting to form a little collection of these. I'm doing all of these little 3x3 paintings for now, but I'm sure that'll change when I get into different series. I have some very fun ideas ahead. If you have other ideas of things that you want to paint, keep in mind for now we're keeping small like this, but let me know what you want us to paint next. Go ahead and put it in the comments. I'd love to see it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. This would be super cute on like a card for someone in the summer. I really want to get better about sending cards. So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me today. See you guys next time.